It was November 14th of 2018. Wayne Book, Angela Gilliam, and I were at the ServeHAITI clinic in Haiti to inspect a new school we were building, as well as to inspect earthquake damage that had just occurred at the clinic, and to coordinate the drilling of a new well at the clinic. We were done with our work, getting things together to return home, when the ServeHAITI Executive Director, Angela Gilliam, told us to hurry. An emergency eclampsia patient had just arrived at the clinic. She would join us for the trip down the mountain and on to Cité Soleil Hospital that might be able to save her. It was a 4-hour rough and tumble race down the rutted mountain roads to the scary Cité Soleil district. This patient was in bad shape and did not have an easy time of it. We left knowing that she was in the process of dying. She started the journey conscious, biting on a cushioned tongue depressor. As we moved, she began to moan and flail, her arms and legs sometimes kicking Angela in the head. Angela, Wayne, and I were in the jump seats at the rear cargo area of the vehicle. ServeHAITI supporter, 6'8", former pro basketball player Yvonne Joseph sat in the front passenger seat next to our driver, Boulay. We started our journey with a brief prayer. The 20-year-old eclampsia patient and her aunt were in the back seat, the patient prone with her head in the lap of her aunt. We tied the IV bottle to the hand grip above the window at her feet, but with each bump, and there was constant bumping, the patient moaned and flailed. She inadvertently swung at the IV bottle with her legs, banging it about, and we were fearful that she would pull the IV out of her arm. We moved the IV bottle to the opposite side of the seat next to her aunt. Blood was in the line. The dripping meds did not seem to be making it to the patient. Time and again, the connection to the IV bottle was pulled out of the bottle, fluid lost in the process. We replaced the tap each time, but then the plastic bottle sprung a leak at the seam. Stopping loss was impossible in the bouncing cab. Then suddenly the IV line evacuated. Did it suddenly enter the patient? What would that do? Or did it leak out on the seat? What would that do? There was only one course of action, the same as from the very beginning: race down the mountain as quickly as possible to the hospital. Things happened along the way. A couple of times large tap-taps, these are big trucks loaded with people and their stuff, were stopped, blocking the mountain road. With some conversation by our driver Boulay, they moved and let us pass. About 2/3 down the mountain road, a gigantic pile of gravel completely blocked the road. Fortunately, the road crew had a bulldozer there, which is a very rare thing in Haiti. And again, our driver spoke to the operator and he began to push the gravel off and out of the way. Within about 10 minutes, we were able to drive over the pile, but perhaps the road crew sacrificed a good bit of hard-to-acquire gravel road building material to give our patient a chance. As we got closer to the flatland, our patient's eyes rolled back in her head. Then she began to have a seizure. Within about 30 seconds, it stopped, but she had gone limp. We checked and asked her aunt repeatedly if she was still breathing. The patient coughed deeply several times on the journey, even after going unconscious, as our driver barreled along the loose, slippery gravel roads as we got to the flatter land. We had another hour and a half of travel, or longer, pending Port-au-Prince's insane traffic. The patient vomited several times, even as she was unconscious, scaring us. We were very concerned about her breathing in the fluid. Wayne and Angela and the aunt tipped the patient's head to clear her airways. We were very concerned with her breathing. We were afraid that she was dying right there in the truck. Boulay was driving very fast, as he should, but it was often scary. people and animals and vehicles, we just cleared them by inches. As passengers in the jump seat, we got nauseous with all the bumping, and one of us had to call for a momentary stop so that we could vomit along the side of the road. Boulay drove through a maze of Port-au-Prince back streets to avoid the heavy clogged traffic on major roads. We had no idea where we were, but Boulay seemed to, as he negotiated obstacles blocking roads in the maze. We eventually made our way to the airport road and then onto the road to Cité Soleil as we entered this, the most dangerous part of town. We turned down an inconspicuous driveway, honked for a guard to open the green metal gate. He asked why, who we were. They were not going to open for anything but life and death cases. The word eclampsia opened the gate. We were thankful that we had made it to the hospital and the patient was still alive. We didn't think that would happen when we left the clinic. We approached the patient area where other patients' family members were sitting on the curb. We walked into a dark corridor and faced a woman behind a desk and security bars. We told her of our need for patient help. Shortly, a middle-aged woman in a white jacket came out to make sure we had a truly sick patient. Our patient was passed out in the back seat. She passed the test. Next, the woman and an orderly came out with a wheelchair. We told them the patient was unconscious and needed a stretcher. They responded that all the stretchers were in use. Then there was a lot of yelling. The white-coated lady shouted that the patient's family needed to move her onto the wheelchair. Boulay and others responded the patient has no family here that can do that she needs help from the hospital. Yelling continued. Yvonne Joseph, Boulay, a different orderly, and some of the nearby pedestrians helped to bring the patient's limp body to the wheelchair. They moved her awkwardly, with her feet high and her head hanging down. As the yelling continued, she was rearranged and wheeled toward the steps at the door of the hospital. The white-coated lady was screaming at her orderly, who refused to help the patient up the 3 steps into the hospital. Angela and Boulay boosted the wheelchair up the steps, and the patient disappeared into her uncertain future. But she arrived alive. So many people were inspired to move and move quickly, to comfort, to constantly check and clear, to treat and pray. Even in the face of obstacles, adversity, and a sense of futility, they kept on. At the Cité Soleil hospital, we found out the next day that the patient received a C-section without anesthesia. They had no anesthesia. And that she defied predictions of her death and survived the surgery. And her baby survived. The patient was touch and go for the next 3 days. She was still not expected to recover. As Angela worked to find another hospital that would take her, the Cité Soleil hospital wanted to release her after her surgery to her aunt on the street. They saw her as a lost cause. Dismissing and releasing her would make her bed available for someone else. Angela found another hospital that would take her, if we funded a CAT scan first. We did. They took her. We found out upon our return to the States that she recovered and was released on November 17th to return to her home, husband, and her new baby in Grand Bois, where the clinic is located. So where does inspiration to help end and divine intervention begin? I'm not sure there's a difference between the two, and certainly no need to distinguish if there is. I was privileged to see firsthand the work of ServeHAITI, receiving, diagnosing, prioritizing, transporting, and then providing follow-up care for this young patient. She and her child would have surely died if ServeHAITI had not been there for them. So, this is Bob Balke, ServeHAITI board member, asking you to please keep us on the mountain. Please help us to help the poorest people in the Western Hemisphere in the most remote part of Haiti. Please support Serve Haiti. Thank you.